So today we are at Raptor Edmonton at their CISC, or Continuous Improvement Service Center. We are touring the shop to show you how they rebuild buckets like this, a 59 cubic yard rope shovel bucket off of Bucyrus, Erie, or Caterpillar 7495. So stay tuned to learn all about how they rebuild buckets like this, some of the wear product that Raptor makes, such as the LWP up there, and how they rebuild track frames and more. So behind us here, this is where Raptor started back in 2005. So Craig ran this out of his garage for almost 2 years.
Yep, almost 2 years.
And
you have to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere.
Yep.
So Raptor started here, and as you're about to see today, we're going to take you inside their large CISC in Edmonton, which is their Continuous Improvement Service Center, where they build new buckets, rebuild buckets, do GET, wear product, track frames for dozers, everything. So
everything.
This is where it started, right here, back in 05. So this is a 59 cubic yard rope shovel bucket off a Caterpillar 7495 rope shovel. Buckets like this come here to get repaired at Raptor. So basically the bucket gets sandblasted by an outside source, comes here. Raptor will do NDT testing, or non-destructive testing, using magnetic particles, so magnetic testing. So they look for cracks in the bucket. Any cracks they find, they gouge out. They'll then test to make sure that the crack is gone, repair the crack by welding it, and then they'll go through and install wear products such as Raptor plate or harder plate. They'll install GET, such as this here. This is ESCO's Nemesis GET. So we've got tooth, adapter, and lip shroud. So that's some of the GET that this customer wanted. There's the ESCO Nemesis, or you can run a Caterpillar Weisler system. So this is Raptor plate. As we mentioned, Raptor builds their own wear product. So if you ever need to identify Raptor plate in the wild, these little zigzag patterns is a signature identifying trait of Raptor plate. Raptor plate is a chromium carbide overlay, so really good protection at sliding wear. And when it wears, it polishes up beautifully because it has chrome in it. And these zigzag patterns will become very apparent. So in this rope shovel bucket, they line the bottom of the bucket where all the material is passing over. So over the lip, across the bottom of the bucket, and through the trap door. So Raptor does what's called laser scans on these. They scan the bucket with laser beams. When they're trying to model the wear product in which they're going to use to line the bucket, they'll scan the bucket so they can determine how much they need to actually model and build the package. So in the old days they used cardboard, so you can imagine getting a big piece of cardboard and lining it up and then taking that to the engineer, but now they use laser beams. So they scan the bucket, they can get an idea of how much they need, they get a model of the bucket, and then in addition to that, once they've installed the wear package, they can scan it and get a true surface, a 0% wear, and then as the bucket's worn, whether that's 5,000 hours or 10,000 hours, depending on the application, they can scan it again and they can get an idea of where the wear is occurring, so a heat map. So if the bucket's wearing out on the heel or on the tip more, Raptor can better tailor the wear package to that, and they can also replace what needs to be replaced, and they get a better understanding of how the bucket is reacting, how the bucket and the wear product is reacting to the material, the application, the operator, the mining operation as a whole. So, as we've seen earlier, Raptor rebuilds buckets, but this is one of the buckets that Raptor builds in-house. So this is a Raptor branded dipper bucket. So they're currently building it here, and as you can see, all this bracing is a Raptor customized and engineered brace, because when you're building these buckets, they don't build it all in one, they build it in pieces. So the bowl, as we'll see on the dipper bucket, is over there, but this is the top of the dipper bucket. So when they weld it, they want to have it braced so that there's no changes in the structure, so that the two surfaces on the edges here made up perfectly when they combine the bucket pieces. So this is how Raptor builds buckets. It's all customized steel with custom bracing to build a bucket that'll hold 60 cubic yards and go on the end of a rope shovel. This is the bowl. So this is the other half of the dipper bucket. And as you can see in here, we've got, again, gussets or bracing to prevent any flexing or change in structure to the bucket when it's being built. Once the two pieces are complete, they'll be combined and you'll get a dipper bucket. This is a bucket off a Cat 6040. So another example of some of the buckets that Raptor rebuilds here. As we touched on earlier, you can see some of the white markings here. That's their non-destructive testing, metallic particle testing. So that's where they look for cracks using ferromagnetic particles that line up on gaps in the electric field when you magnetize this. So it'll show you the cracks. It allows them to repair it and test for more cracks and then do a full repair on it. So they've done that on this bucket. Now they're installing some wear product in here. So this is AR400 plate, and then on the cheeks we have AR400 as well. On the lip we have QT100, which is a quench tempered steel. So it stands up better when digging hard rock. It's not as brittle. In order to get these adapters, so what these are called here is these are adapters in which your teeth go on. In order to get these to weld to QT100 or AR400, you have to heat up both the adapter or the wear product and the bucket itself. And then you have to cool it at a certain rate and a certain temperature to allow that weld to solidify and become very strong. So there's a lot more that goes into building these buckets than people think. You're not just slapping stuff on and welding it on. There's temperature curing, there's considerations for different types of steels, there's NDT testing, and then also what does the customer want in terms of wear product? Is it an oil sands bucket? Is it a hard rock bucket? Is it a coal bucket? Is it going to an iron ore mine? So everything that Raptor does here is centered around what the customer needs for their application. So this is going to a gold mine in British Columbia, a hard rock mine, hence why we have AR400 and QT100 lip and Cat GET. So again, Cat GET, Caterpillar 6040 shovel. So we are here in a 793 truck box. This is off a Cat 793 haul truck. This box came from Chile. It came here in 3 pieces. So the canopy and then the box was split into 2, so 3 pieces. So Raptor welded it all back together. Now they're preparing it for non-destructive testing, like on the other buckets we've seen. They test for cracks, test for defects, repair those, and then they're getting ready to put a full liner package in here. So Raptor is going to use their chromium carbide overlay plate, which is their Raptor plate. They're going to do it on the face and on the bowl. So with truck boxes, you get a lot of sliding wear. You get a full load of material and then the truck dumps, so you get a lot of sliding wear. That Raptor plate, which is a chromium carbide overlay, is really good at protecting from sliding wear, which is why the entire floor and the face will get fitted with it. So when Raptor first started back here in Edmonton, Craig ran the business out of his garage for almost 2 years. Their 100,000 square foot facility here in Edmonton, Alberta was their first facility that opened in 2011. From that point, they've grown beyond into Peru, Chile, Florida, China. So we're here in Raptor's overlay bay. This is where they do stuff like ARM, abrasion resistant material overlay, and plasma transferred arc. These are welding robots out of the General Motors truck assembly plant. Raptor purchased these and repurposed them for doing overlays on things like cutting edges, rousers. An example of an overlay, so this is called ARM. This is abrasion resistant material. So these are ice lugs, and these get welded onto grouser pads. So the abrasion resistant material is very high impact and high sliding wear resistance. It's basically just a molten flux with tungsten bits that gets applied to the top of the grouser. So there's a couple mines specifically in southern BC that run these because they have a very hard rock, a lot of silica. So they put an overlay over the grouser, and that helps the undercarriage last longer because grousers might wear out faster than links and sprockets and rollers. So to extend the life of a grouser, they do a ARM, or abrasion resistant material overlay. So another example of ARM, or abrasion resistant material, is when they put it on cutting edges. So these are D11 cutting edges. They're hot, so we're not going to touch them. They just came out of the oven, but they put abrasion resistant material on each side. You may ask why on both sides. It's because they flip the cutting edge. So as soon as this side wears out, you can flip the cutting edge and you can use that surface. So this just extends the life of cutting edges, especially in very abrasive material like frozen oil sands, extremely hard rock. I was going to pick this up, but it's too heavy. This is a ripper tip off a D11. Raptor does overlays. This is their overlay bay. So PTA, or plasma transferred arc. The first step is to remove paint. So they sandblast it because if you have any paint on there, you can get porosity in the overlay and then it'll just chip off. So the point of the overlay is to armor up the ripper tooth so that the overlay wears out before the tooth. It just extends the maintenance interval and how long these teeth last, which is not long in the oil sands, especially in winter. So this is the start of the process here, is sandblasting the tooth. It can go into the oven, and then it'll go into get welded by the robot and get overlay on it. These are D11 track pads. So typically in undercarriage, the grouser might wear out before the actual track pad, before the rails and the links. So in this case, they've had a robot cut off the worn out grouser and they welded on new grousers. So they're extending the life of the undercarriage without having to throw away parts that may still have life left in them. Raptor, this is what's called plasma transferred arc, or PTA, as we saw with the ARM, which is a tungsten grit that's dropped in when the overlay is being applied. This is a tungsten powder that's incorporated into the weld, so you get a lot cleaner, smoother finish, really nice weld, and this again just extends the life of the hydraulic mining shovel tooth, which this is a Hitachi 8000 or 5500, 5600 tooth. It could go in either. So they're armoring up the edges where it's actually digging into the active face to protect the tooth and give it extended life. So plasma transferred arc, this is all automated. So there's a touch screen there and the computer does all this work. So no one has to stand over it and weld like that. Everything's done with the robots here in this bay. After we've done overlay, whether that's PTA or ARM, it comes here and gets a water-based paint applied. And the purpose of that is just to protect it in transport, because once the tooth or the cutting edge hits the dirt, it pretty much comes right off. But it gets painted cat yellow here and then gets shipped to the customer. So that's how the overlay side of the business here works at Raptor, is it gets prepped, put in a furnace, overlaid with PTA or ARM, painted, and it's shipped to the customer and pretty much put to work. But back there we've got hydraulic mining shovel teeth. We've got Whistler teeth in the back there, which go in a rope shovel, and then we've got D11 corner bits and D11 cutting edges. So pretty much everything that's been overlaid comes here and gets painted. Again, it doesn't need to be in a sealed facility because this is a water-based paint, not an oil-based paint like they use on track frames. This can be in the open air like this. So not only does Raptor build buckets, rebuild buckets, but they also completely rebuild track frames. So this is a D8 track frame. This came out of the oil sands, and it's in here at its half-life interval to get a full rebuild. So that's everything from pins, non-destructive testing for cracks, new rollers, new idlers. Raptor will do a full once-over and rebuild everything, including the cannon. This is what it looks like when it gets here. You can see it's pretty beat up. It's got lots of oil sand on it. It's pretty dirty. When the track frame comes into the shop, they initially do a wash, then it goes to sandblasting, and then Raptor's ready to start tearing it down and doing the repairs. This is a D10 cannon. So after Raptor cleans, sandblasts, and does initial inspection on the actual track frame, they'll split the cannon from the track frame here. So this cannon goes inside, and there's a spring in here on which the track adjuster pushes on and keeps tension on the tracks. So the front idler sits on there, the rear idler's on there, and the spring inside here just pushes out and keeps tension on the track. So to take it out and inspect and repair it, they unscrew this big nut here. That comes out. They'll send things off for inspection. They'll typically replace the spring and replace any external seals. So right here is the track adjuster. So this thing here is what you fill with grease to push out and apply pressure and keep tension on the tracks. So this pushes the spring, which is inside here, and that's basically how the track stays tight. But Raptor disassembles all this, reseals, inspects anything for cracks, repairs those, replaces the spring, and then once the rest of the track frame is repaired, everything goes back together. Okay, so here's an example of some of the repairs they do on the undercarriage. So this is a D11, this is called a major bogie. So the minor bogies are in here, and that's your rollers, and this is your major bogie. This is what the rollers sit in and ride on. This is what rides with the ground. So you can see here, they've done some NDT testing with metallic particles. So you can see they've found the cracks, and there's quite a bit of cracks in this major bogie. So in this case, the customer has chosen to replace the entire major bogie, but if they were to repair this, they would gouge this out and re-weld this. But there is a point in which the metal can no longer take any more stress, and it's so fatigued that no matter how much you repair it, it won't last. So that's what the customers decided to do, is replace this because of that. But if it were, say, 1 or 2 cracks, they could gouge this out, test it again, and then weld and repair it. So we saw the cracks they found. This is after they've gouged it out. You can see how deep that crack actually was. They had to gouge pretty much all the way down in here. I can fit my hand in there. Now they're gonna build that back up with weld, and then this will be repaired and ready to go back to the customer after they've installed bogies, painted it, things like that. This is how they repair cracks on undercarriage. So from start to finish, to rebuild the D11 track frame like this, from when it arrives in the shop to when it's about to leave the shop like this, is 6 weeks. Raptor, alongside doing things like new rollers, new idlers, the cannon, seals, pins, things like that. They also do some upgrades to these if the customer chooses. So the bottom plate gets replaced with a 1-inch thick piece of steel because you get a lot of torsional forces in there. So you have a thicker piece of steel, you have some additional gussets and strengthening brackets inside there. And then down here, on the inspection port, this is a really common place that D11 and D10 track frames crack, is it'll crack right along this bolt up here. So what Raptor does is they actually weld on an additional piece of metal and fill in these OEM bolt holes and weld them so that there's a stronger piece of steel right here where it typically cracks. So inspection port, bottom plate, they do a bit on the top plate as well, but it's just a way that they help their customers get a bit longer life out of these track frames given the harsh environment in which they work in. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the vlog where we showed you how Raptor rebuilds buckets, builds their own buckets, and rebuilds things like this D11 track frame. I hope you learned something about Raptor and about how buckets for mining class iron are rebuilt. If you want to learn more about Raptor Mining, you can check out their website. I will leave the link below. And we appreciate you watching this vlog, and we'll hope to see you on the next episode. Good Raptor.